When the average Canadian goes to bed at night, they are likely not thinking about lands far away. Guarded by two large oceans, Canada has been largely removed from the geopolitical squabbles that plague most of the world. Since the end of the Cold War, Canadian foreign policy appropriations haven't been spent on military hardware, but rather on aid given abroad to foreign countries. While most of these funds are granted overseas to numerous NGOs, nonprofits, and other humanitarian entities, some are given directly to foreign governments themselves. Now, these governments aren't necessarily the most reliable. Some abuse the money they receive, not to benefit their people, but themselves, and the authoritarian government of Mozambique fits that description. I'm Arjun Sahota from Coastal Front, and today we're going to talk about Canada's funding of the Mozambique government and what they're doing with your tax dollars. First, a bit of context. Mozambique is located in the southeastern part of Africa, just across from Madagascar. Since achieving independence from Portugal, Mozambique has struggled to develop. It consistently ranks as one of the world's poorest countries, has scored very low on the UN's Human Development Index, and has faced famine, civil wars, and natural disasters. This devastating situation within the country has led to ask for international aid, and Canada has given it. Since 2007, the Canadian government has given nearly $250 million to the Mozambique government's Ministry of Education and Culture. Yeah, you heard that correctly. $250 million. That's enough to buy the most expensive house in Los Angeles, according to Zillow, and have some change left over for a G5 airplane to fly to Vegas and have a nice stay at Caesar's Palace. Looking into the Mozambique government, however, we wish they were spending it on expensive homes and private jet. Currently, the Mozambique government is controlled by the Mozambique Liberation Front, or FLIRMO, a political party. FLIRMO has ruled Mozambique ever since the country held elections in 1977. When I say elections, I mean elections, just so you know. Other parties can form and run, however FLIRMO has consistently won every election with strong majorities in parliament, keeping them in power for decades. However, in recent years, Mozambique's fragile republic has taken a more authoritarian turn. In the 2024 elections, FLIRMO candidate Daniel Chapo won 65% of the vote in the first presidential election round, avoiding a runoff. In addition to holding the presidency, FLIRMO lost about a dozen seats in parliament, allowing them to keep their parliamentary majority and govern unobstructed. These results were challenged by FLIRMO's opponents as illegitimate, citing numerous election irregularities, as well as having the support of international observers who questioned their accuracy. This resulted in protests where the government security forces cracked down hard on those participating, killing many and injuring more. But even with these protests and dissent, Chapo was inaugurated as president in January, with many domestic political groups and African nations refusing to attend. So, that's a quick overview of the government of Mozambique, a government Canada is sending $250 million to fund its educational department. But just what exactly is this money going toward? First, let's talk about textbooks. Now, this makes sense, right? I mean, we're funding the education ministry of a country, so they should at least be able to deliver textbooks to their students. That's one of the stated goals of the Canadian government's purpose for this funding. As a matter of fact, according to the Canadian government, students were already provided with the books, so there's no worry, right? While it is true that these books may have been printed, where they got to the students is a different story. In Mozambique, there have been numerous stories of textbooks being delayed and not being able to reach students who need them the most. The Mozambique government responded by making the textbooks domestically, but for some, it's too little, too late. In 2020, there were reports by local media that books are being diverted from public schools to private schools, being sold in the process. This allegedly has been done by teachers and principals themselves, even as the books say on the cover, "Sale forbidden." This is even if the books are making it to the kids at all. In the first half of 2024, only 4.5 million of the promised 22 million textbooks were delivered to Mozambican students. Students reported having to look over the shoulder of another student to understand their teacher's lesson, and other books were said to have blatant errors in important subjects such as history, geography, and math. Clearly, the education ministry is a bit lethargic, to say the least. There is minimal oversight by the government to ensure that these books reach the intended students. Now, if the story was just about missing textbooks, there would be no need for this video. But the education ministry is being used for a far more partisan purpose. Local reporting indicates that in the last national election, held in 2024, teachers in public Mozambique schools, as well as government-provided cars, were being pulled from the schools and forced to campaign for the incumbent government, FLIRMO. Schools were even shut down as there were no teachers available to, teach the kids. School staff were even told to directly contribute to FLIRMO from their paycheck, a paycheck they received from the education ministry, a ministry funded by Canadian tax dollars. Was Canadian money used for this? We cannot say definitively, but it's shady. Is it possible that these teachers genuinely back Fliamo? Sure, but do they really need to campaign during school hours and be forced to directly donate to the Fliamo campaign? I mean, the Vancouver School District doesn't mandate teachers back the current NDP government, the BC Conservatives, or any other political party, so why are we tolerating it in a foreign land abroad? With these stories of school mismanagement, abuses of power, and shakedown of teachers, the Mozambique government's actions would anger many here in Canada. Canadians need to ask themselves, is this a government Canada should reward with more tax dollars? Is this a government whose conduct represents that of Canada's? Wouldn't this money, $250 million since 2007, be better spent somewhere else as opposed to the educational arm of an autocratic regime? And these are just the reported instances. What happens under the table? What don't we see? What happens in these classrooms? Do these children learn anything of value so they can escape poverty? What about other Mozambique ministries that receive Western funding? Is there graft and abuse there as well? Look, we are not saying that Canadian money went directly into the hands of Fliamo's campaign efforts or their plans to rig the elections. But what we need to ask, as Canadians, is about whether this is a government Canada should support. That is something we'll leave up to you. Thanks for watching our video here at Coastal Front. If you want to read the full article I wrote, feel free to click the link below. If you want to see more video reports like these, subscribe to the Coastal Front YouTube channel.